Off the ball. This is News Talk.
Welcome back. The All-Ireland Camogie Championship moves into the knockout stages this weekend, with two quarter-finals taking place at Páirc Uí Chaoimh. A 5 o'clock start for the match between Kilkenny and Wexford, and then we've got a Munster derby for the second year in a row between Tipperary and Waterford, and that game will get underway at 6:45. To look forward to the games and to discuss the championship to date, delighted to say we've got four-time All-Ireland winner with Wexford, Ursula Jacob, and ex-Cork and Dublin player Sarah O'Donovan. Ursula, if I can start with you, Wexford coming back to the fore again after a few difficult years. You know, it's been 9 years since you won the All-Ireland title in 2012. Not that long ago that we were talking about Wexford being relegated in the league and not being able to field in a game. And now it seems a new spirit about Wexford this year and getting into the last 8 of the competition.
Yeah, credit to Wexford. It's brilliant. I may be biased, but it's brilliant that Wexford are back at the knockout stages of the competition. You know, as you said, they've had a couple of disappointing years, but credit to Kevin Tatton and his management team. You know, they came in last year and it was a very difficult season to try get any bit of kind of flow or bond between the players and management, and they actually did quite well last year. But I suppose this year they've had that little bit more time together. Kevin has brought his approach to this Wexford team and it's worked quite well. I would have said that the goal for Wexford at the start of this year was probably to get out of Division 2 league and then qualify for the knockout stages of the championship. Now, disappointingly enough, they got beaten in the league semi-final to Down in Division 2, but the big thing was getting to the knockout stages of the championship. And look, they're there now. They've got a huge task against Kilkenny on Saturday, but look, they'll take great confidence from some of their games in the group stages, and it's great to be there against Kilkenny in the quarter-final.
And crucially beating teams around them in the championship who they would have had difficult tussles with in recent seasons. Particularly the Offaly result on week 2 was really the foundation for them qualifying for the last 8.
Yeah, without a doubt, and getting 4 goals past Offaly that day as well, that creates momentum, that builds, belief and confidence, and it allowed the girls like Katrina Park, who's come back into the fold this year, and Nae Curran, a club mate of mine. Those girls, when they winning, creates that belief, and as I said, it strengthens the panel as well, and that's what Kevin and his management team have had to do this year as well, because as we see in any of these games, the starting 15 rarely finishes, and against Kilkenny they'll need 15 players plus to be at the top of their game. But look, it's really those group games have really laid the platform for Wexford going into this quarter-final.
Before we talk about Kilkenny and bring Sarah in on the conversation, how important has Katrina Park been, Ursula, the experience that she brings, particularly after a couple of seasons away? And all the interviews I read when she came back at the start of the year was that she was really hungry to have a big impression in that Wexford forward line again.
Yeah, Katrina will bring a huge amount. Look, I've played with her for years and I've played against her. And no matter what, even if Katrina's not having, an absolute classic of a game, she still needs minding. And Kilkenny and any other opposition will know that, because give Katrina half a chance and she is wanting on her mind always. And that's the head down, and she goes for a goal every time. So she's going to pose a huge threat for Wexford in the full forward line. She probably had a quiet game for her own standards against Tipperary in the last group stage, a group game, but I think we're going to see a big game again for Katrina on Saturday, because Katrina's the type of the player when you need someone to stand up, and a leader like herself, in a big game, in a tough condition against Kilkenny, no better woman to stand up. She's done it on countless times for Wexford, and I think she'll bring that leadership that Wexford really need going into this game on Saturday.
Sarah, how big a task is it for them to try and overturn Kilkenny, though? That group game defeat, where both teams were already qualified against Galway, is the only real black spot on their record over the last couple of seasons. They've become so hard to beat. We saw how well they played in the All-Ireland final when the game was in the balance last year. Is this really tricky for Wexford to try and overturn the Cats on Saturday?
I think in Leinster there's a different kind of a competition. No team looks at another team and thinks that they're any better or worse than each other. So Wexford will fancy themselves against Kilkenny, regardless of previous results, regardless of the fact that Kilkenny have been in 8 All-Ireland finals and Wexford necessarily haven't been to the 4. We played Wexford the week before our first championship game against Cork, and I thought they were very well organised that day, very well structured. We won the game, which might have been to our detriment, because we went into the Cork game thinking that we were farther along than we were. I think Wexford were ticking along nicely. They obviously played Limerick, who had been brilliant against Kilkenny in their league semi-final, And it was a surprise to me that Wexford had stolen a march on Limerick. But Wexford obviously grown massively in confidence from that. And I think Wexford are probably the team best primed to have a scalp off Kilkenny because they don't fear them.
Yeah, and have got results against the team previously back before their blips in recent seasons. Do we have any concerns here about Kilkenny maybe starting the summer a little bit slowly out of the league and into championship? Because early doors, when they just about got past Clare, and particularly against Westmeath, they struggled for large stages of that game until they got their second goal in the second half. People thought it was just a case if they were going to fire. A Kilkenny supporter will probably say to me, we only lost to Galway by a point. If we get through a quarter-final, we're still at the semi-final, which would have been the expectation when the championship started off. Or do we get any concern that Kilkenny are maybe not quite firing as well as they were last winter?
Kilkenny are the only team who can win games without necessarily giving a performance. They did the same against us in the league. They tipped along. They beat us by 5 points without breaking a sweat. Then they came up against Galway in Croke Park in the league final and they hit 83 tackles over the course of the 60 minutes. An incredible intensity when the requirement is there. And I think they're just that team that can switch it on. So I've no fear of Kilkenny kind of moving through the gears as this championship goes on. Their bigger games are to come and they've won the league. The championship is theirs for the taking. It's really not about showing all of your cards right now. Galway got the result obviously against them, but I think Kilkenny won't have batted an eyelid.
Ursula, is that one of the real challenges about overcoming Kilkenny this weekend, if your old team are going to do it, is that when games have been in the melting pot over the last couple of seasons, Kilkenny have found a way to win, whether that was the league final, whether that was the All-Ireland final last year. This Kilkenny team have got an incredible quality of finding the winning touch when required in big games.
Yeah, and I suppose that's kind of when you become an All-Ireland winner or champion. And as I just mentioned, you know, winning creates that belief. Kilkenny don't do panic. Even in the league quarter-final, the league semi-final and the league final, they were behind Limerick, Tipperary and Galway in all of those games. And a sign of a really good team is when there's no panic and they just seem to be able to switch it on when it really matters. In that league final against Galway, they were probably being completely hurled out of it at stages. But in the second half, when they needed to get the crucial score, Aoife Doyle stepped up. When they needed the crucial score in the All-Ireland last year, Denise Gall put her hand up. So it's a different leader every time. You know, Anne Dalton, is a huge loss to Kilkenny. But there's different players standing up this year, whether it's Katie Nolan at centre forward, whether it's Katie Power, who's back in the fold as well, let's not forget. They've leaders all over the field, and that's going to be a huge challenge for Wexford. You know, it's not just minding or keeping Denise Gall quiet. They have to try keep Megan Farrell's influence from the half-back line, you know, to a minimum. They, you know, and for Wexford to win and be really a chance on Saturday, I do feel that Wexford will have to get a couple of goals. And this Kilkenny defence, they're probably the toughest and tightest defence in the Camogie Championship because they rarely allow your player inside you. And they'll probably foul you out 40 metres away from the goal rather than allowing you to get in for a goal. So if Wexford can maybe get in for a goal or two, I would give them a chance. But Kilkenny are very, very strong at the back. And throughout the league, they were able to play these games without Claire Phelan playing in all the games, without Colette Dormer. So they do have options off the bench as well, and that's going to be crucial on Saturday. Yeah,
because Sarah, sometimes one hand gives and the other one takes away, and missing Anne Dalton is big, but having Katie Power back after the horrific run of injuries that she's had, and it was almost heartbreaking seeing her on the pitch last year but not being able to be involved, to have that kind of impact and option if the game is to move away from them at different times at the weekend. They've got a bench that's pretty stacked.
Yes, and look, I'm a big fan of Miriam Walsh as well. I think she's such a direct runner. Didn't have a great game in the All-Ireland final, but has worked really, really hard to get herself back into contention again. Those kind of players just keep popping up for Kilkenny, you know, on the big days, as Ursula said. And I would say that Anne's distribution is missed. I thought in the league final, the inside line wasn't getting as much ball as Anne would have previously, you know, sprayed across the half forward and full forward line. But they are, as always, finding new ways to create pockets. And that's why Katie Nolan was so effective in the league final. They love finding space. They love finding pockets. They're so clever. And then crucially, across the back three, somebody's willing to give a professional foul as a player's coming through. You know, Siobhan McGrath was held up a couple of times very cleverly by the Kilkenny backs. And it's not like, I'm going to take the yellow now, you'll take the yellow next. I suppose it's that bravery there where they're going, I'm willing to take the card for my teammate and my teammate will take it for me. I don't think that professionalism is in other camogie teams.
Well, winning teams will always play on that edge, Sarah, and like this Kilkenny team play on a real physical edge too. They definitely push the boundaries. I'm not claiming that they're doing so in any way illegally, but they are a really good team at physically bullying their opponents if they get going.
Yes, and that's, I suppose, we played 11 of the 12 teams in the senior championship this year over the course of the 12 weeks that I was involved with Dublin. And the big teams that stood out for me in terms of their physicality were Kilkenny, Galway not especially, but Kilkenny and Tip. I thought they were two very physical teams. Limerick, I think, are a very physical team. Those are the teams that have kind of gone that extra level in terms of their athletic development. And you can see that in their conditioning, that players are bouncing off them, you know, and that's when teams go to the next level. So in order to bridge that gap between, say, the top 8 teams to become top 4, that physicality that you're talking about is present.
Ursula, moving on to the Munster derby that we have, your neighbours Waterford up against Tipperary. Waterford have added a real consistency to their level of performance in recent years. This is no longer any great surprise that Waterford are operating in the knockout stage of the championship.
Yeah, you know, this is their 4th consecutive quarter-final, but unfortunately from a Waterford perspective, they probably haven't had much luck at this stage. You know, they've lost the previous 3 quarter-finals and 2 of those were against Tipperary, and probably their closest chance of winning a quarter-final was 2 years ago against Galway, a game they probably really should have won, and Galway went on and won the All-Ireland. But looking back at last year's quarter-final, I was down at that game in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, and you know, as Sarah just alluded to, Tipperary's physicality in that game last year really stood out to me. At times, they just completely overpowered Waterford, and that would be a fear for me for this game on Saturday evening. You know, how are Waterford going to react to that physical presence of Tipperary? Look at their defence. You've Mary Ryan, Karen Kennedy in defence, 2 all-star winners from last year who are so commanding in the full and centre-back position. Trying to find ways around those girls is very, very tough. You know, and even further up the field, like, it's not just the girls in defence, but Tip have loads of players, Roisin Howard midfield, Arena Friday, and then you've obviously the true leader of the team, Cát Devan. But it's not just the Cát Devan show anymore either. You've Orla Dwyer, you've girls coming in off the bench that like Clodagh McIntyre, a young girl, Emer McGrath, who've done really well throughout league and championship this year. And for me, looking at the 2 teams, Tip probably have that overall balance in comparison to Waterford. I still think there's probably an over-reliance on Beck Carton and Niamh Rockett. And I'm just looking, and I'm kind of curious to see what will Waterford bring different to the table on Saturday, because I think if they go with the same kind of way that they're set up and playing, they won't be able to defeat Tip on Saturday.
Before we talk about Cork, Sarah, what's your assessment of Waterford? Do you give them a chance going into this weekend?
We've played them twice. We played them in the league. We relegated them by a point. They were missing Lorraine Bray the day we played them, and she was obviously playing in the championship, and she had 18 possessions against us in the championship and 8 tackles, which was a huge possession count for a player playing out of wing back. Obviously, Beth and Niamh Rockett were very busy against us in Parnell Park. I just, based on the fact that we played Tip out in Abbottstown about 5 weeks earlier, and we were blown away by their physicality, I agree with Ursula. I would be concerned that Waterford's physicality will not match Tip's. I think Tip have done a lot of work in the background and they can hurl. So while Waterford can hurl, Tip have the physicality. And
Sarah, Orla Dwyer, no one would have blamed her if she put the feet up for this summer after her exploits in the AFL. But I think within a week or 2 of landing back into the country, she was straight back out training again. And she's had an impression in the game she's played in the Camogie Championship so far this year. A tremendous athlete to have coming into the panel to boost them after the league.
Yeah, when she had to leave last year, obviously, because of the pre-season in Australia, she kind of took the wind out of Tip's sails when they were heading into their semi-final. And I just feel like she probably felt she had something to give and wanted to give it as quickly as she could, because leaving when Tip were on the cusp of something great was probably very difficult for her. Now, obviously, the season she had in the AFL afterwards, no one will, will say that she should have, not gone. But certainly, I think she probably came back and said, girls, I'm here, I'm ready to go, which is very exciting for Tip.
Ursula, do we consider Tip one of the real contenders to win the All-Ireland if we take that Galway, Kilkenny, Cork realistically are kind of seen as the big three still? Are Tipperary the next best team then?
Yeah, for me they are. If you look at the previous 3 semi-finals, Tip have lost to Cork, Galway and Kilkenny. A big one for me, I think it's a psychological thing now at this stage for Tipperary. Look at the league semi-final. They were completely dominating that game against Kilkenny. They were flying for maybe 45 minutes, and again, Kilkenny were able to turn it on when it mattered. They got 2 goals in the space of 2 minutes, and then, Tip couldn't find a way back. I feel if Tip can get over the game on Saturday, I give them a great chance going into a semi-final. I think for Tip, we've seen huge progression. I do think they're edging closer and closer to getting into that top 3. But if they can just manage to get to a semi-final and then play one of the Cork, Kilkenny or Galway and manage to get over one of those big teams, I think it would do wonders for Tipperary. I remember when we were back in 2006 and we were up against the likes of Tip and Cork, and they always had the upper hand on us. And I suppose it just takes one victory over a big team to really give that inner belief and that sense of, yeah, we can compete with these big teams. And I think if Tipperary can get over the line against Waterford, I think they'll have learned an awful lot from that league semi-final loss against Kilkenny.
Sarah, do you think Tipperary are getting that bit closer to the challengers now?
Well, the last time Tip were in an All-Ireland final, I was playing in it. That was 2006. Yeah. So I just can't believe that it's taken that long for Tip to get back to the pinnacle of Camogie, because at the time, Tip were everything, like Ciara Grogan, Uno Dwyer, Claire Grogan, Deirdre Hughes. These were household names. And then Tip just literally went from the top of the mountain and never returned. So it would be brilliant for them to come back. I genuinely think they have a load of work done based on my experience of playing all of the teams this year in the championship. They probably need a little bit of luck, no more than Meath had against Cork last week. Just a couple of turnovers, maybe just a goal to go their way, and then all of a sudden it's game on.
How far are Cork away from Kilkenny and Galway, Sarah, then?
I think Cork's championship has been very stop-start this year again. Look, they played us in the first round. We didn't give them anything. We didn't give them a scare. I don't think we were competitive. Aisling Thompson came off with 10 minutes to go. There wasn't anything urgent about their playing us. You know what I mean? Again, they were like Kilkenny going through the gears. The second day out against Down, they had to travel to Down. I think they travelled to Down without Aisling Thompson. They got a scare in Down. I don't think Paddy actually played a team that would be, say, a team that he'll obviously line out for the semi-final. I think it was quite different. And then obviously against Waterford, they got over the line. But they haven't really gelled as a team yet this year. I think the league, they would have liked to have got a better, run in the league and didn't. So they've kind of disappointed probably themselves, and they've been disappointing over the last 6 or 8 months. And maybe Ursula will agree. It's trying to find that winning momentum in a team that has it can be very difficult. It's nearly easier for a team like Tipperary, who are kind of trying to get there. It's more enjoyable for those kind of teams. It's less enjoyable when you're Cork and everyone's expecting you to win and you're not.
And Ursula, that is the double-edged sword of winning your group in the format that we have this year. Fantastic, you get to go straight to a semi-final in this case, but there's an argument to be had that getting a good quarter-final might be the way to go. Then wait for the draw afterwards around 8 o'clock on Saturday, and then you've got an extra game in the bank and you're that bit sharper.
Yeah, I think Kilkenny and Tipperary would be both happy enough. Obviously, they are fully aware that they're going to have big challenges against Wexford and Waterford. But just, it's, if you were probably tipping it, you'd say maybe Tipperary and Kilkenny will progress into the semi-finals. But, I think they'll be happy enough getting the extra game, whereas Cork are going in a little bit cold. Galway, will be taking confidence from their last group game against Kilkenny. But probably I think any of the big teams would prefer to have that extra game, because winning, you see that momentum that builds when you're playing week after week after week. And I would say with Cork, I'd agree with Sarah, maybe there's not that settled look with Cork yet. Pamela Mackey's back in the setup now as well, and that adds an extra element. Is she going to be started in the semi-final? She's obviously a huge player, a big leader on that Cork team, but she hasn't played a whole amount of competitive action this year either. So that's a chance. Are you willing to take? Probably will, because of her experience, and she's a brilliant player. But if she's coming up against a Galway, a Wexford player, a Tipperary player, whoever in that semi-final, that'll be really her first bite of a really high competitive game at a semi-final stage.
I want to ask both of you about Sunday, the All-Ireland hurling final coming up too. And Sarah, given your Cork half of your hat here, is there a feeling that Cork can pull off a bit of a surprise and beat Limerick? It's been so long, relatively speaking, since they lifted the Lee McCarthy, going back to 2005, having not been in a final since 2013. That is a proper drought for Cork going into this weekend. I
agree. The under-20 win last night has obviously bolstered Cork confidence. Everyone's suggesting that the minor on Saturday and then all of a sudden Sunday could be a treble. But ultimately, it's Limerick. And you know what? I don't think it's a bad thing that we're going in as underdogs on Sunday. This group of players have given a ferocious amount to Cork already. And it would be lovely to see them give that performance that is there, that the potential that we know they have. But the physicality that Limerick have shown and the experience that they have of winning in All-Ireland last year, winning All-Ireland in 2018, you can't discount that. Cork are still looking for a first All-Ireland, as you said, since 2005. Is it a mountain? I think it's a mountain to climb, but you know what? There's a group of players there that have absolutely no fear, and they're very excited about trying it out. Is there a feeling, Sarah, it's on the cusp of something really special happening because of the way the underage teams have been going? Like, even after this cycle of players, there seems to be a lot of talent which are ready to step in. Like Kieran Kingston, even looking forward to 2022, they feel like they're a team that are kind of at a coming of age at this time. I agree. Look, I was very excited about the players I saw last night in the under-20 game. What I was most excited about, and probably what we've missed for a while, is those ball-winning forwards. It wasn't the prettiest of ball going into that Cork half-forward line and full-forward line last night, but they were winning their own ball, and we haven't seen that for a long time. I thought Patrick Power was immense. I just thought, if it's going to be this new style of hurling where those forwards are putting up their hand and catching ball out of the sky, I want that hurling back, So I'd be very excited about plugging those players into players like Mark Coleman. Let's be realistic. Patrick Horgan, Seamus Harnedy, there's a shelf life with Cork players, and those lads have given their absolute best for Cork hurling. So there will be a case of kind of rolling out those incredibly talented older players and bringing in this new bunch of players, and it's evident that they're there. Ursula, as a perfect neutral like myself in this one, I'm excited to see it because Limerick have been the total standard setters for the last 4 years. This is a remarkable group of players. But Cork come at them almost like a mirror. They're a team who will run at them. They will play a short possession game. They will pressurise Limerick during it. There's a potential for a really excellent All-Ireland final here. Without a doubt, and as a neutral, I'm really, really looking forward to it because, Limerick are there, probably the team that we all expected to be at this stage, at the start of the year. And then Cork probably have surprised some of us. I probably wouldn't have tipped that they were going to be in the final this year, but they've really proven, that they're worth their place in that final. They've come, they've now had three wins in a row against, three big teams, and that's going to be a huge thing going into this final. And another thing as well, obviously Cork have lost to Limerick twice this year already by 8 points, but some of these players, they've come up against Limerick, whether it's at underage level or in previous years, and they have beaten these Limerick players, and they will go in with the confidence that they should have, based on their performance in the semi-final especially. When that game was in the melting pot, they had different guys standing up. It wasn't just the over-reliance on Patrick Horgan. It was Jack O'Connor coming up. It was Shane Kingston coming on, scoring 7 points. Alan Cadigan, Declan Dalton, even Robert Downey, who was under huge pressure in the first half, probably the first 45 minutes on Billy Power, who got 6 points scored off him and then finished in the manner in which he did. That's the character that these Cork players are bringing to the team, and I'm really excited about it because Cork bring that pace, they bring that excitement. I was looking at it earlier today. Cork have scored 25 goals across league and championship this year. That's one thing that Cork know that they can, bring to this game on Sunday, and I think they will need a couple of goals if they're going to be there in the last 5-10 minutes against Limerick.
But it'll be just so interesting, all the key battles around the pitch. But for me, one of the matchups that really has to be honed in from a Cork perspective is the influence of Cian Lynch, because to me, he pulls the strings and he just creates so much scores. He offers so much to the attack and to the midfield area, and I just think his performance on Sunday is going to be crucial for Limerick, and obviously Cork are going to have to do their homework there.
Sarah, in the minute or so we have left, give me the case for Cork winning.
I would say, realistically, we're going to have to not step off as we did against Kilkenny in the first 40 minutes, because if we're as kind as we were to Kilkenny in the first 40 minutes, this game will be over. So the intensity and the work rate and the doggedness that they showed for the second half against Kilkenny, they will have to bring against Limerick for the first 45 minutes. The issue is that obviously Tip showed that they could run them for 30-35 minutes, and then Limerick just undid all of Tip's good work. So you're going to have to look for a performance for 70 minutes for Cork. Do I think that they can do it? Absolutely. Do I think that they're going to try and do it? 100%. Do I hope they're going to do it? Jesus, I hope they're going to do it. But other than that, I have no idea what's going to happen.
Well, look, enjoy the game at the weekend. Lovely to chat to both of you. The All-Ireland final on Sunday at 3:30, and then you've got the two Camogie quarterfinals at Páirc Uí Chaoimh on Saturday evening. It is Kilkenny against Wexford, first game 5 o'clock, and then 6:45 it is that Munster derby between Tipperary and Waterford. We'll be back in a moment.
Off the ball on News Talk.
Our grandfather founded Stafford's Funeral Homes in 1953. Generations later, the people we've met and the lives we've helped to celebrate continue to be our inspiration. That's why Stafford's now have some of the most comfortable facilities in Ireland and provide more choice and control for families. Inspired by our grandfather, Tom Stafford, we are proud to serve our community with the highest standards of funeral care. Stafford's. Trust our family to take care of yours.
Thinking of a summer getaway? It's time to visit friends, family and the places you love with Stena Line. It's time to jump in the car and pack what you want without worrying about baggage charges. And it's time we welcome you on board where everything is just right. Or as we say in Sweden, lagom. Let us take care of the big little things that make every sailing spacious, stylish and safe. Get away to Britain or Europe from only €139 one way for a car and driver. Book today at stenaline.ie.
With the Q Park Rewards app, you can get 10% cash back on your car parking. Not only that, you can get some exclusive extras from retailers too. But let's just park that for a minute. Because right now, every time you use the Q Park Rewards app, you'll be entered into a competition to win one of 50 €10 vouchers from Insomnia Coffee. Simply download Q Park Rewards, register your bank card and start using the app to pay for parking today. Visit q-park.ie. Competition closes 10th of September. T's and C's apply. See web for details.
Support Irish retail by shopping with Ireland's #1 online store, mixgarage.com. With guaranteed next day delivery across a massive range of items, you'll find everything you need for your car, home, garden, staycation and so much more. Sign up to our sale alerts to access exclusive discounts and get €5 off your first order. Join almost 1 million happy customers and shop Irish with mixgarage.com for Brexit-proof shopping delivered straight to your door. Visit mixgarage.com today and buy Irish.
Off the ball. This is News Talk.
Dan McDonnell is going to be with us for the football show after the 9 o'clock news. Tottenham 1-0 down in Portugal against Ferreira. Only about 20 minutes left in that one. Harry Kane did not travel with the Spurs squad. Earlier this evening, Shamrock Rovers scored